All right, everybody, welcome to Studio C in beautiful West Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We are going to be working with shooting today. So here's the start of a little game that we are going to create. Now, this game is pre-made for you. So in the comments is a link to a zipped folder. So much of this, what I'm going to start right now, is already pre-done for you. So it says click anywhere to continue. And you can see we've got some alien fish that are coming down and invading our planet. And I'm going to use arrow keys. If you look carefully, you can see that I've accelerated and decelerated my character using arrow keys. And if it goes outside the room, although you can't see it, he's just parked just outside the room. So I can go another direction, just gets outside the room. So that's where the game is that we're going to get started. So download the zip file, extract all of the things, open it up in GameMaker, and we'll be ready to go in just a moment. All right, so I have already recorded a companion video to this particular one that talks about how all of the pre-made stuff is done in detail. So how the title page works and how the fish and the characters work. So I'm just going to do a really quick summary of what's in that video, and then you'll be able to watch the other ones to learn the details. So I've got a title object and a title room. So I've got a title room that simply contains a background picture. The other video will show you how to do that. It also has a object that's off the screen in the top left that has a little question mark there. That means this particular object doesn't have a sprite, and it basically has the ability to draw the text as well as to click anywhere to go. On level 1 then, I have just a series of fish that I've added, and I've added my spaceship. So those are the only two things. I've got obj fish and an obj ship. The fish have a create event that gets them moving. When they go off the screen, they simply jump down a certain amount and switch directions. They go off the screen, jump down, and switch directions. They just have a thing that reverses their their horizontal speed. And in my OBJ ship right now, I simply have key presses for right and left arrows that add some functionality for speed. And again, you can look at the companion video to see exactly the details and how that works, or you can just figure it out by looking at the code. All right, so this is about shooting. So we're going to focus on the good guy shooting a bullet today. Although we may also get to the fish shooting back down, but primarily we're going to focus on the basic concepts of shooting to keep this video a little bit short. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a bullet object for the good guy. Now I have a bullet sprite pre-loaded into your game, so SPR bullet. So I'm going to create an object based on that. When we create an object, as always, you want to make sure it's solid right away. That just tends to help. And I'm going to go grab this bullet object as well. Now it looks like I might have a white background on that. That might be something I'll have to clean up in a later video to kind of show you how to get rid of background colors. It was actually not that hard in the sprite editor. Maybe, in fact, I'll do that here right away for you. All right, so this button here will allow you to edit the sprite, or you can go back in the sprite itself. So you click that button, it actually takes you to the main sprite editor, and then you have to hit edit the sprite. And there's a really simple built-in way, because it's quite common in game design to have to remove some background. So you'll notice right here, color removal tool, it is as simple as click, and you are done. You've got rid of that black white background. So that's why I decided to show it to you, because it's so quick. All right, where was I? Back to the bullet object. Okay, so here's the deal. When we do the events for the object, we need to make sure that we decide kind of what is important to do here and what's important to do in the ship that's shooting it. But essentially, the idea is the ship that's shooting is going to create the bullet, and then once the bullet is created, we need to take over within the bullet itself. So I'm going to call this OBJ bullet. In fact, actually, I'm going to back up and call it OBJ good bullet. And that's because I may end up using the same sprite for the bad guy bullet for my fish bullet as well. And therefore, it's nice to differentiate. And if I don't bother, if I end up creating a new sprite, then we don't need to really worry about that too much. Okay, so in a moment, we'll show you how to get the ship to shoot. So let's just get the bullet moving and add one little extra thing in here. So in its create event, so again, the event that's created when this is first done is what we're going to work with. And a little shortcut, actually, I don't know if I mentioned this in the other video. If you hold the space bar and click, you can drag straight to the right. I think I was actually using the mouse wheel in my earlier videos. And just be aware of that. So space bar, click, and drag, and you can move these things around a little bit easier than using the mouse wheel. I learned that just today. All right, so we need to get this moving. So we're going to go to the move action. And in fact, this time I'm going to just scroll down to move because it's often nice to kind of remind yourself what's here. So there's different kinds of reverse directions and set frictions and things like that. So I like to kind of hover over these once in a while and remind myself what's there. So we're going to move this bullet up, of course, because we have a vertical shooting game. So I'm going to say up, and we're going to give that bullet a speed. We'll just set the bullet in its direction. Of course, you could go vertical speed as well if you wanted, but we only have the one direction, so I'm not going to worry about the others. And we probably want to get this going pretty quick. Let's maybe give it like an 8 or something. We can always come back and change it. So in a moment, we're going to go and test this, but there is one important thing we have to do before that we create this bullet, and that is we need to tell it what happens if the bullet misses. So what we're going to do is we're going to say add event other outside room. This is really, really important in shooting games that you delete or destroy your bullet if it leaves the room, because otherwise it just keeps on going and GameMaker keeps tracking it. So if you're shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, then it just keeps going and keeps tracking all those bullets, and eventually you're going to lag your game because it's tracking thousands of things. So outside room event, we simply need to destroy self. I'm going to go and find destroy. So there it is, destroy instance, and that is it. So when it goes and leaves the room up top, it'll destroy itself. We don't need to worry about it ever again. All right, so let's go and make the ship shoot. Now, we're going to use for starters, we're going to keep it really simple. In fact, probably in this video, we're just going to not worry about the slowdown on things. There's ways, you have to decide if you want to be able to shoot infinitely or have some ammunition, or if you need to slow down the bullets. And probably the slow down is something you want to do, but at the very first game, all you want to do is be able to just shoot as much as possible. So I'm going to add an event. I'm going to do the key press again. So at the very least, I'm going to make my user let go of the key rather than, because if you do key down, then you could hold it down and it would just keep shooting rapidly. So it's like a auto fire, automatic versus a semi-automatic, I guess is maybe one way you can think of it. So it's quite common under key press and shooting to use the space bar, but I actually don't like to use the space bar because I find that I tend to pound the space bar a lot and it's susceptible to actually breaking the space bar over time. So I'm just going to pick something else. So I'm just going to pick a letter, and maybe I'll pick the letter B for boom. Not because of any other particular reason. It's above the space bar. I can hit it with my my left index or an index finger if I'm near the ASWD keys in a future version of this game, or who knows what. So key press B. So key press B, what we want to do is we want to create an instance of the bullet. Then once the bullet is created, its create event is going to take over to get it shooting. So we're going to do this and get it moving, and then I'm going to look at the subtle visuals of what's going on and kind of make a suggestion on something we might want to adapt afterwards. So press key. All we have to do is find in the toolbox the create instance. It's under instances. Actually, maybe I might actually get rid of that and just scroll down to the instances one so you can kind of quickly see what's there. So there's create instance, that's what we want. Destroy position. There's all kinds of change instance ones. So if you ever want to go from one type of bullet to another instance, there's some alarms. You want to do countdowns. We may end up using those alarm ones if we want to slow down the bullets and things like that. There's lots of neat ones in here you should be aware of. Set sprites. You can change the sprite and things like that. So I just want to always take the time to kind of have a look at what's here. But we want this one called create instance, little light bulb. So what do you want to create instance of? Well, we want to create instance of the good bullet. Okay. Where do we want to create it? Well, this is interesting. So we want to create it at 0, 0. But if we just leave it at this, it's going to be 0, 0 of the screen. So what this relative means is 0, 0 relative. But relative to what? Well, it's relative to the 0, 0 point of the object that we are in right now. So right now I am in the ship object. So it's going to create the 0, 0 relative. So it's going to draw this bullet at the 0, 0 point of the ship. Now in a moment we're going to have a close look at where the 0, 0 point of that ship is, and we can make a decision if we want to alter that a little bit in a couple different ways. Layer, there is a possibility of more than one layer of instances. I don't really bother in that in intro stuff. And target, you don't need to really worry about it at all. So this is really all we have to do to actually get it shooting. Let's show you how this works. Now, again, when it comes up, I want you to look very carefully at where the bullet is created relative to the gun. So I'm going to just keep my gun still so it's easy to do. So there's my space. Whoops. Click on it once. Oh, it wasn't space, it's B. So there's my B. Oh, that's interesting. Look at where it's coming off. It's coming off the left corner. And of course, obviously, we don't have the anything to kill the fish yet. So why is it coming off the left corner? Well, it has to do with what's called the origin point of these objects. And the origin point is set by the sprite. So the origin point, by default, if you haven't changed any editing, is the top left corner of the sprite. Now that includes any background. So if you think about the bullet sprite, it has a bit of a background. The ship sprite has a bit of a background. And both of them are going to be created at their origin point. So let me go have a quick look at that. If I look at the bullet sprite, what you'll see is its origin. Oh, in fact, for whatever reason, this bullet's origin point is over here. Now, how did I know to look for that? Well, here this thing says 29.7. Normally, actually, you see it at the 0 point. And so there is a mouse hairs that you may or may not be able to see unless you look for it in most sprites. And they're most often at the top left corner. So that means that's where it's going to draw from, as well as that's where its 0 point is according to its object. So if I look at, before I make a change to this one, if I go back to OBJ ship, sorry, sprite ship is what I want to look at, you'll notice that its origin point is there at the 0. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can go back into the code and say, when you create this bullet, adjust for this. But in a game like this, where we're not really worried too much about the exact look of the ship, it's sometimes best to just simply say, let's get this to the center. And I believe there's a shortcut here that you can say top center, or you can click and drag that, right? Or you can do it by number. This is it's 32 wide, so the origin point to be precisely center would be 16. Right, if you want it to be right there, and then of course the vertical is kind of up to you. But you also you need to do that in both, right? You want to make sure that if you're doing this in center, you're doing it center. It shows it being centered. It looks a little bit off, but that's all right. And so I'm going to go to I'll close that one and go to my bullet sprite, and I'm going to do the same thing. In this case, I'm just going to put it right in the middle center, so that way it shoots right from there. All right, now let's run this again and see if that now makes these a little bit more looking like what we want. And as long as it's in the ballpark, we're good. If we could play around with that origin points a little bit. And the other thing we could play around a little bit is the order of things. So let's see. So now if I press B, oh, it actually looks pretty good. I think it's actually shooting in, sometimes they go on in front of each other and they don't look as good, so you can play around with the order. But generally speaking, this is looking pretty good. And just to prove that I can shoot from wherever I am, right, we're ready to rock. The bullets go straight up and away to go. Okay? Now, I want to do one more thing before I do this. I want to create a second bullet just to show you what you'd want to do if you want to say aim at an object instead. So I'm going to create a second bullet object called OBJ aim bullet. I'm going to do this really quick. Let me think. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this slightly differently. Back up. I'm going to duplicate, so I don't have to go and make all that stuff all over and over again. So this, I'll delete the one I just created, and I'm going to say for OBJ good bullet, I'm going to right-click and say duplicate, and then I'm going to go inside that one. Now I can rename this. And I guess this is going to save me a lot of work, but it might later on at some point in time if I was doing this with multiple, with more actions and events. So I thought I'd show you this. Quickly here. So I'm going to leave this the same. I'm going to do a different thing. The outside room, we still want that to be in play. And under create, that's what I'm going to change. So there is my current thing. So I'm going to leave the direction the way it is, but this set direction fix is not going to work for me. Because what I want to do is I want it to go in the direction of where I clicked. So we are going to get rid of set direction fix, click that, and we're going to edit what is there. All right, so getting it to aim at the mouse is actually quite simple. So there is a movement action. So I'm in the movement kind of set here. I started typing move at the top. It's called set point direction. So if you click that in, it says go in a direction or start moving in a direction. Remember in our create event, start moving in a direction of a certain point. And what this means is head there. So what point do we want to head to? Well, there's a built-in variable called mouse_x. You can see it pops in, built-in variable. And then we want to move to mouse underscore y. Okay, so therefore we have our direction to point. So again, I still that same speed I did before. In case you missed that, I'm still in my create event because that's what we want to do whenever we create this thing. Now we go back to our ship and we just have to trigger that happening. So we're going to add an event. We're going to add a mouse event, but don't forget we want to add a global mouse event because if you leave it at regular mouse event, it means we have to click on the ship and we don't want to have to click on our own guy. So we want to click on our ship. Global left press is the one I usually use, and we want to create an instance. There it is in my recently used one. Pop it in there. Create an instance of obj aim bullet. Don't forget to pick the right one. We want 0, 0 relative, and we should be ready to rock. And if this works, the last things we need to do is to give our bullets the ability to shoot our bad guys, actually kill our bad guys. So there's our thing. So if I click over here, you can see clicks there. And again, it also works if this guy is moving. And you can actually see what happens if we're off the screen. He does still be able to shoot even though he's off the screen. Ooh, I think, yeah, there he goes. As long as our bullets are created. If the bullets get created in the screen, of course, they disappear. So, all right. So last thing we're going to show you today is getting rid of those having the bullets work, and we're not going to worry about the timing of slowing down your bullets here in this video, just because we're already at getting close to 20 minutes. So let's give that a little bit of functionality here. Let's say that we want our bullets to collide with the fish and destroy the fish. Here's an interesting thing. I have now 2 bullets. These 2 bullets both need to have the same functionality to be able to kill a fish. It seems kind of odd that I would have to create something in the same twice. Now it's doable to copy and paste events and things like that, but I want to see if we can figure out a shortcut. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create what's called a parent object, and that parent object is going to have some properties that are going to apply to both of these objects. We also could have done the same thing with the outside room because they're also created in both these, but we're going to leave that kind of new concept to now. So I'm going to create a new object. And I'm not even going to give it a sprite at first because that can actually give us some confusing. But I'm going to call this bullet parent, obj parent bullet. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, oh, hold on a second. Yes, parent. Okay, I just want to make sure that was there. I was confused for a second. So in this parent bullet, we're simply going to add a collision event that says collide with fish. And when we collide with fish, we're going to destroy both the fish and destroy the bullet. And if we wanted to add score, we can do score. You saw score a little bit in a previous video. I'm not going to do that right now with this one. So my action has to be destroy, but we need 2 destroys. One that's destroy self and one that's destroy other. So I'm going to pull this in twice and remind you that the drop down arrow has self, which is what we want, and other. Now you don't want to say destroy fish because it'll destroy all the fish with 1 bullet. Okay, so destroy other means destroy just what we collided with. Now, that by itself doesn't do the trick unless we tell these 2 objects that they have this as a parent. So we have to go back to obj good bullet and say parent is the obj parent. Okay? And we have to say to obj aim object that parent is obj aim object, we want to say its parent is the obj parent bullet. Okay, and then that will work. You notice there's also can do some children underneath here. There's probably a little bit of shortcuts that I'm not aware of at the moment. So let's see if that worked or if the parent object is working differently in this version of GameMaker than what I'm used to. Used to work a little bit differently, but let's see if it actually allows us to destroy with either type of bullet. And for that, we're done this video. All right, let's see if it works. So I'm going to shoot. Ta-da! So the obj aim is working, and let's make sure that the obj parent is working. Hey, look at that. They're both destroying this. So this is a good shortcut if you're going to have objects that all have similar properties. So let's say, for example, I want to bring in a second fish that has a different type of alien thing that does different things at different points in time, but I still want some of that fish capability, then that will work. The other thing you can do is you can have the fish, say, have a collision event just with the parent. And if the fish collides with the parent, it also collides with the other two. So it's kind of, you can do it in either reverse things. So there we go. There's your introduction to shooting. What do we got here? Well, we've got the ability to press a key to shoot, and we've got the ability to do that. Now we haven't added the ability to slow down, and we haven't added the ability for the fish to shoot back. We'll save those two things for future video. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good one. Goodbye.